All right, today we're tackling something pretty heavy, but absolutely essential. It's all about the systematic breaking of the human mind. We're pulling from Joost Meerloo's incredible book, The Rape of the Mind, which is this chilling look into psychological coercion and how thought control really works. So let's get right into it.
So Meerloo kicks things off with a pretty terrifying question for you. Could you be forced to confess to a crime you didn't commit? Now, before you give a hard no, he really wants us to understand that the human mind isn't some unbreakable fortress. It's actually a lot more fragile, a lot more vulnerable than we like to think.
And there's a word for this process: menticide. This isn't just about physical torture, no. It's a cold, calculated destruction of a person's ability to even think for themselves. The whole strategy, as Meerloo lays it out, is to completely strip away any hope, any belief in a future, to basically kill the very things that keep the spirit alive.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We'll look at the mind's vulnerability, then dig into the step-by-step process for breaking one person. After that, we'll zoom out and see how these same techniques get used on whole populations. We'll ask why we surrender, and then, most importantly, we'll talk about the antidote, what Meerloo calls our mental backbone.
You know, Meerloo wasn't just an academic. He interrogated Nazi torturers and their victims after World War II. And he came away with a really ugly truth. The spirit of most people can be broken. Given enough systematic pressure, almost anyone can be pushed back to a primal state where all dignity is just gone, for everyone involved.
So how is it actually done? Well, menticide isn't just random violence. It's a precise, psychological game plan. And to really understand the blueprint, Meerloo tells us to look at the show trials of political prisoners, like the one involving Cardinal Mindszenty in Hungary. The breakdown happens in 3 clear phases. First, you force a confession, any confession, it doesn't matter if it's true. Second, you train the victim to believe that false confession is real. And finally, you condition them to become a willing witness against themselves.
Phase 1 is just a relentless assault. Imagine being bombarded with questions day and night by interrogators working in shifts. You're deprived of food, sleep, any kind of rest. They even use drugs, not to kill pain, but to make you more confused and keep you awake longer. The goal is simple and it is brutal: total physical and mental collapse and erasing any idea that there's a tomorrow.
And look, this isn't just a theory. After 66 hours of standing and being interrogated nonstop, this is what Cardinal Mindszenty actually said. It's the sound of a complete breakdown, where death feels like the only way out. This is the exact state the Inquisitor is trying to achieve.
So once you're broken, they start to rebuild you, but in their own image. Those false admissions get repeated over and over and over, just hammered into your brain until you're in this state of self-hypnosis and you actually convince yourself that you're guilty. At that point, you're not fighting anymore, you're just speaking, as Meerloo puts it, his master's voice.
Okay, so now let's scale this up, because the exact same ideas used to break one person can be used to control the minds of millions. And this is a war fought not with guns, but with words, with symbols, played out right in the theater of the public mind.
To get this, we have to look at Pavlov. He talked about 2 signal systems. The first one is simple: direct stimuli. A bell rings, a dog salivates. We get it. But the second system is uniquely human. It's words. A simple word like traitor or enemy can be weaponized to trigger a powerful, unthinking, emotional reaction. It becomes a conditioned reflex, completely bypassing any logic or reason.
This quote just nails the whole strategy. If you control the language, you control the thought. By repeating slogans and official truths over and over again through mass media, you can literally implant the thought pattern into people's brains until it feels like their own original idea.
When it comes right down to it, this whole ideological fight is a battle over the meaning of words. When words lose their objective meaning and just become propaganda tools, critical thinking starts to fall apart. People stop trying to understand things, they just absorb and repeat what they hear.
But why does any of this work? I mean, why do people, whether as individuals or as a crowd, just give in? The techniques are obviously brutal, but there's more to it. They exploit these really deep vulnerabilities that, frankly, exist inside all of us.
So Meerloo highlights this fundamental conflict inside our own heads. On one hand, we have this powerful need to be an individual, to have our own identity. But on the other hand, especially when we're under extreme stress, there's this opposing need, an almost overwhelming desire to just let go, to disappear into the group, to stop fighting. When you're terrified and alone, that wish to just collapse can feel impossible to resist.
And that collapse is sped up massively by one of the torturer's most powerful weapons, isolation. I mean, what happens to your sense of reality when you're completely cut off from the entire world?
Well, without the normal, everyday things that keep us grounded, the mind just kind of turns on itself and starts to fall apart. Old anxieties you thought were gone come bubbling up, your fantasy life takes over and becomes real, and here's the really twisted part. The Inquisitor slowly becomes your only link to reality, your only human contact. This creates this bizarre, submissive dependency on your own tormentor.
So after hearing all of this, you have to wonder, is there any defense against this kind of systematic attack on the mind? Well, according to Myrlu, yes, there is. The answer lies in strengthening what he calls our mental backbone.
First things first, we have to recognize what the real target is here. Menticide isn't just about getting you to obey, it's about crushing your core humanity. The end goal is to completely erase individuality and create a society not of free-thinking people, but of obedient robots.
So the antidote is everything that builds that individuality back up. It's spiritual bravery, having the guts to defend your own opinion even when everyone is against you. It's about taking responsibility for your own thoughts. It's even the simple human things like love and laughter, which Myrlu says can shatter all kinds of rigid conditioning. At its core, it's the courage to not conform.
And that brings us to a final, really critical question for today. You know, Myrlu was writing about totalitarian states, but his ideas about mass media and propaganda feel more real now than ever. In our world, with this constant digital noise and engineered influence all around us, what does it really take to keep your mind your own? It's definitely something to think about.